The first thing I noticed was that one of the curtains was moving, even though the windows didn't open. It was just a soft sway, barely enough to notice, but it stopped the moment I looked directly at it. The ward was supposed to be empty after 9. I was sure of that. I'd checked the board myself. I work nights as a patient transport aide, one of those jobs people forget exists until they need someone wheeling a bed down a hallway at 2 a.m. That night, I wasn't transporting anyone. I was assigned to sit in Ward C and keep an eye on things. That was the phrase the charge nurse used. No elaboration. Just a clipboard, a folding chair, and 12 beds separated by pale green curtains. Ward C was technically closed. No active patients, no visitors. Just equipment waiting for morning admissions. The lights were dimmed to night mode. That soft yellow glow meant to keep people calm. The air smelled like disinfectant and something faintly metallic, the way hospitals always do when they've been cleaned too thoroughly. At first, nothing happened. I sat, scrolled my phone, listened to the hum of the ventilation, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. Around 10:30, I started feeling like the room was occupied. Not in a dramatic way. No sounds, no movement. Just a sense that the space had reorganized itself when I wasn't looking. Like when you walk back into a room and know someone has been there, even if nothing is obviously different. I told myself it was fatigue. Night shifts mess with your head. Your brain starts inventing patterns just to stay awake. I stood up and did a slow walk through. Bed 1 to 12. Curtains half drawn, mattresses bare except for fitted sheets. IV poles parked neatly. No personal belongings. No shoes under beds. When I got to bed 7, I hesitated. The curtain there was pulled a little farther closed than the others. Not fully, just enough to create a darker pocket of space behind it. I reached out and tugged it open. Empty bed. Nothing unusual. But when I stepped back to the desk, I realized something else. The curtain was moving again. Not swaying. Breathing. That's the only word that fits. A slow, rhythmic in and out, like someone shifting their weight behind it. I watched it for a long time before it stopped. I didn't report it. There was nothing concrete to report. Curtain moved doesn't go far in a hospital full of drafts and machines. Still, I adjusted my chair so I could see all 12 beds at once. That's when I noticed the monitor. There was a portable vitals monitor mounted on the wall, left over from when the ward had been active. It shouldn't have been on. The screen should have been black. Instead, it was glowing. A flat green line stretched across the display. No numbers, no beeping, just the line. I stood and checked the power cable, unplugged. The line continued, unwavering. I stared at it long enough for my eyes to hurt, waiting for it to flicker or die. It didn't. Eventually, I turned away. Watching it felt intrusive, like I was observing something private. After that, I kept hearing sounds that almost resolved into footsteps. The soft scuff of shoes on linoleum, always just outside my field of vision. Every time I turned, there was nothing. The sounds never approached or retreated. They stayed evenly distant, circling. At midnight, I did another walk through. Bed 7's curtain was closed all the way. I stopped a few feet away from it. The air felt different there, warmer, thicker. I didn't touch the curtain this time. I stood and listened. There was no breathing, no movement, just silence dense enough to feel intentional. I marked something vague on my clipboard. Visual check completed. My handwriting looked shaky. When I sat back down, the vitals monitor was different. The flat line was gone. In its place was a waveform, slow, irregular peaks. Not a healthy rhythm, the kind you see right before someone codes. Still no numbers, still unplugged. I whispered hello without meaning to. The waveform reacted. One sharp spike, then back to its uneven crawl. I didn't speak again. Time stretched. The clock over the nurse's station moved too slowly, each minute an effort. I kept my eyes on the beds, counting them over and over like they might change. They did. At 1:17 a.m. there were 13. It wasn't obvious. The extra bed was squeezed between 6 and 7, partially obscured by overlapping curtains. Same frame, same mattress, no sheets. I counted again. I counted aloud under my breath. The number didn't change. My first thought was that someone had rolled it in while I wasn't looking. But the hallway outside the ward was silent, and I hadn't heard wheels. I would have heard wheels. I stood up slowly, every instinct telling me not to approach. I didn't want to look behind those curtains. I already knew what I'd see. I checked the assignment board near the entrance instead. 12 beds listed, no changes, no notes. When I turned back, bed 7's curtain was open. The bed was occupied. Not by a patient in the usual sense. No gown, no 4. Just a person sitting upright on the mattress, back to me, shoulders slightly hunched. I couldn't see their face. They were wearing street clothes, dark jacket, hospital wristband on their right arm. I knew with a cold certainty that I had checked that bed less than an hour earlier. I waited for them to turn around, for them to say something, for anything that would make this feel procedural, solvable. They didn't move. I took one step closer, then another. My shoes sounded too loud. The person didn't react. From behind, they looked wrong in subtle ways. Their proportions were just slightly off, like someone remembered a body from memory instead of observation. I stopped an arm's length away. That's when I noticed the wristband. It had my name on it. Same spelling, same patient ID format. The date of admission was tomorrow. I backed away so quickly my chair fell over. The sound echoed. Still, the person didn't turn. The vitals monitor began to beep softly. I ran. I don't remember deciding to. I just found myself in the hallway, gasping, my badge swinging wildly against my chest. I didn't stop until I reached the stairwell at the far end of the floor. I stayed there for the rest of my shift, sitting on the steps, listening to the building breathe. No one came looking for me. No overhead announcements. No alarms. When morning staff arrived, I went home without saying anything. I didn't sleep. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unknown number. Hospital internal line. The message was short. Hi, this is Ward C. Just confirming you didn't check yourself in overnight by mistake. We seem to have an extra wristband printed. I deleted it without responding. I still work nights, but I don't take assignments in Ward C anymore. They reopened it briefly last month. I asked around, careful not to sound strange. They told me the extra bed was removed. They told me the monitor was replaced. They told me there was never a patient admitted under my name. I believe them. But sometimes, when the hospital gets quiet enough, I feel that same pressure in the air, like a room rearranging itself when I'm not looking. And I find myself listening, waiting for the sound of a curtain breathing behind me.